All right, so if you haven't been in this world of truth seeking, this movement, what people may call Q or white hats or any of these things that sound like crazy conspiracy or right wing, whatever you want to name it, or the media rather names it, then you haven't been awakened to the degree that a lot of us have. And I call this audience 1, 2, and 3. If you've seen some previous videos I've talked about, I've said that there are a few small groups of people, a small percentage of people, maybe less than 1%, that are in this camp of an audience 3 level of awakening. And this audience 3 requires a lot of research, a lot of discernment, and it requires you to actually spend time and to get deeper into this. And so I want to remind you again where we are at, right? So these people that are in the higher echelons of society, that are good guys or whatever you want to call it, you can put Trump in there, you can put many patriots if you want to call it in there. These people, if you go on Truth Social, if you go on some parts of X or Twitter, on Telegram, and many of these other channels, on Rumble especially, and many others, I talk about it slightly, not to the degree that a lot of these guys do, but in some sense I refer to it or I make inferences to this movement, but really it requires in some sense a belief and a faith in that this is actually happening. And so this is why the credibility behind Q and some of these things are becoming more and more prevalent in these days, because what they have said, the posts and what they talk about in these posts that people decode, they do deltas and drops, they pick apart all these different like names and the way that they speak. It's always coming to pass in the sense that whatever was behind or in the past, and it gets exposed now, especially with some of the Epstein, the Diddy stuff, and all of this other corruption. And I'll give some examples here in a second that a lot of people are continually referring back to. It just makes more sense and it keeps affirming what they know, meaning that the military or whoever these guys are, that they had this knowledge. Everybody from Snowden down to Julian Assange, even military guys like General Flynn, these people knew something, but they didn't expose it until the right time or until they got all of the evidence and all the stuff. I guarantee you everything that happened with Diddy, it didn't just come about in the last 1 year. It was a culmination of, I don't know, people maybe double agents, undercover agents, and these guys going in there, gathering all the evidence for a very long time, and it's going to be connected to bigger things. And so this is why people are making inferences back to other Q drops or other statements. A lot of people talking about the connections to Hillary, that Diddy played, and all these different people because of what's really going on. All of these big names, whether it's Kim Kardashian, and again, I'm not assuming anything yet, but all of the different clips that are coming out with secret like connections and relationships that people are going to talk about in the coming days. There was a guy, Absolute 1776, talking about how the Diddy thing, he's in jail now. He's going to be in jail till the trial. And just like with what we saw with Maxwell, right? Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epstein stuff, there are people for which people are not going to care about. Weinstein was a big thing. Maxwell, we had the Epstein, but now there are other people that will come to light. People have talked recently about Les Wexner from Victoria's Secret. Now we have Diddy and R. Kelly, these guys. Maxwell may not be a big enough name to trigger a mass population awakening. Diddy, however, Diddy is a big enough name. And there are so many guys that are doing this type of decoding for which you can comb back through the Q posts and these things about so many different deltas, so many different inferences. So here, if you go to Q, a lot of people ask me, where do you research some of these things? QAlerts.app is a website that compiles and amalgamates some of the early 8kun and 4chan research or the forums, because there's a lot of different conversation, but just taking some of the Q posts out of it. And back then, 2020, way earlier, talking about these guys, Les Wexner, Epstein just came to play. I'll show you a clip here in a second about what it is that's happening as things are unfolding slowly, little bit by little bit.
Mogul behind Victoria's Secret has gotten years when he's accused of abusing sexually underage girls. And Leslie Wexner, the retail mogul behind Victoria's Secret, has gotten kind of caught up in this whole debacle. How is he involved here, Leslie Wexner?
So on one hand, he's not involved in this issue at all, but on the other hand, he does have very close ties to Jeff Epstein that it will potentially hurt his business a lot. We have in the story...
You see, we've already been given a lot of the clues. People don't understand it, but this is what's coming up time and time again. And even Trump here in a recent rally or town hall with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I think this is Flint, Michigan. This is very recent, like a couple of days ago. He talks about this. People were making this in the truther community more viral because, again, he's giving these clues that he's referring to Q. And now you could look at it as being a quote-unquote stretch, but listen to what he says.
But I do have to say, so I give these long, sometimes very complex sentences and paragraphs, but they all come together. I do it a lot. I do it with Raising Cane, that story. I do it with the story on the catapults on the aircraft carriers. I do it with a lot of different stories.
He's saying that he goes all the way around. What is he referring to? He's talking in some lavish way or long-winded way. People make fun of him for that, but he's really talking about how he has a team. He has, and somebody said before, like thousands of people are behind this psychological operation or this Q movement or whatever it is to communicate, bypass the media and communicate directly to us through either these Q boards or other means to tell us ahead of time what's really going on. So this is what he's talking about in the sense of he looks kind of aloof or stupid or he's playing this part, but behind the scenes, he's doing something much more important, which is to get the message out to those that are listening and willing to take the time to decode or to interpret what this really means. And he's giving us little ample clues as he's going about this process. So watch him do a Q move here.
When I mentioned Dr. Hannibal Lecter, I'm using that as an example of people that are coming in from Silence of the Lambs. I use it, they say, it's terrible. So they say, so I'll give this long, complex area.
Look at what he did there. He made a Q symbol. A lot of people are talking about this. He continues to do this, and he's saying it with the words behind, backing his meaning, this cryptic meaning behind the fact that he's talking about Q.
For instance, that I talked about a lot of different territory. The bottom line is, I said the most important thing. We're going to bring more plants into your state and this country to make automobiles. We're going to be bigger than before. But the fake news, there's a lot of them back there. You know, for a town hall, there's a lot of people. But the fake news likes to say, oh, he was rambling. No, that's not rambling. That's genius when you can connect the dots. You got to now.
And you see how he references connect the dots, just like how the Q post we talked about earlier says connect the dots. So these are some of the examples of him talking and referring back to these comms of Q. And that's why this movement hasn't died for the last, 6, 7, 8 years. And people demonize it in the media because they don't want us to go and research it. But if you go and actually look at it, you will see a lot of validity. Again, like I said, you can look at qalerts.app, you can go to the forums themselves, but it's very complicated to try to navigate through this stuff. And so I don't want to get into the whole detail. I don't want to make this channel about daily comms. And for me personally, it takes a lot of time and energy and effort. There are other channels, other people that do this very, very well. But the point here, the bigger message here is that God is in control. He's using certain people to get beyond this whole internet age with misinformation, right? It's not about what it was kinetically in World War II or World War I, trying to get the upper hand with the front lines or with tanks or technology. Right now, the upper hand you have is if you can control information and try to communicate to the people and have them believe certain ideological, psychological methods or ways and have them think that their perception of reality is a certain way, such that no matter what you do, you could take it as a negative if you perceive it in a negative way, but really it's a positive thing, or vice versa, because of all of the propaganda or ideologies. People think right wing is bad. People think left wing is bad when a lot of it is, and other people think it's good. It depends on what side you are on to try to indoctrinate you, to try to capture your way of thinking. And that's why if we're not rooted in scripture and in the Bible and in the Lord first, you will be thrown aside, right? Tossed into the wind. And that's why if you don't get the foundation right, then you can't upgrade to the next level of trying to discern and understand what's really going on. So this is why a lot of us are sort of at odds with each other, because yes, we agree on certain fundamental things, but other people think you are making a joke out of this whole white hat movement, out of this whole Q thing. But really, they haven't researched, they haven't looked, and they haven't connected the dots to see, is it really feasible based on, and again, this is one example that I'm showing you out of hundreds, even per day, of things that are happening because so many people are quote unquote in on this whole operation. And if you read the thousands and thousands or even tens of thousands of either Q posts, other people talking about what's going on, it is beyond coincidence that people that have known things and it's now coming out, this week being Diddy and other things. And as more and more comes out, you're going to have to accept that, okay, there's something else behind the scenes that either the military, the white hats, other people know. They were written off as conspiracy theorists, as crazy people. And then years later, it comes to pass. So that's why a lot of us have not thrown it away. We've not given up because we see it as, wow, it continues to unfold. Maybe albeit it not being at the speed that we want it to, but it's still happening. It's progressing in a positive way. It's not like we look back and said, oh, all that conspiracy, all that Q stuff, all that Hollywood stuff, the Pizzagate stuff, the Diddy stuff, oh, that was all whack conspiracy. It's actually coming true. There's a delay between conspiracy theory and conspiracy reality. The question is, how long is that? And it's getting shorter and shorter. It used to be 6 months, used to be a few years, long time ago. Now it's getting faster because it's true. So if you want to be on this camp, on this train of trying to awaken yourself to understanding what's really going on in the world, then I suggest the first thing you do is humble yourself before the Lord to pray, as opposed to being ignorant and saying, you know what, I don't want to believe in this stuff. I don't want to deal with it, because this is going to come to your doorstep in one form or another with regards to some issue, whether it's your family, your kids, the schooling they receive, all the way down to your health choices. It's going to come in some form or fashion to your door. So that's why we have to vote. We have to be awakened. We have to be alert. We have to be praying, take up our arms in the spirit, right? So be encouraged, be blessed. Talk to you guys very soon.